All right, it's Thursday, which means it's another trip down memory lane. And while my dog's getting situated in the background, if you hear some jingling, um, this for me is one of I after recording last week's one, I've been excited about this one. I think I mentioned in the last video, outside of meeting my wife and my kids, um, what I'm about to get a chance to go over is probably the most influential year span of time that I think I had my entire life, and part of that is because all of the most important people, um, wife and kids excluded, that end up becoming such an integral part of just my life adventures all show up in today's span of readings. All except for one. Sorry, Putman, you have to wait 3 more weeks. Um, and because I'm a nerd, that if you haven't figured that out already, I spent this week going through what my recording schedule is going to look like, and in a perfect world, there is going to be a few times where I think some of my recording may take a little while, or I might have to do it on an alternate day. Um, I work in education, so you know, site visits, different events. I will be out of town for a funeral here at the end of the month, that kind of thing. Um, but for those of you at all interested, it should take me until the middle of October to finish all of this, as long as everything goes as according to plan. So, today, with freshman year now in the rear view mirror, we kick off sophomore year. And if there's ever a time for the phrase sophomore hijinks or teen angst or whatever, this year is it. Sophomore year is entitled The Finer Things. And I am going to probably put, probably about here, a photo of what I looked like in sophomore year. My little official elementary school photo. I may try and sprinkle a couple more in. I don't know if I really have any good ones for this spot, and I'm trying to decide whether or not to put in a choir one of that I found online. And if I do it now versus the first concert, it is of myself, Blaine, Eric Stoltz, and Brian Haller. So here we go. And come morning, there's a good wind to blow me home. Before the official start of sophomore year, the Downbeat choir got together for a meet and greet, both with each other and the new choir director, Wendy N. Wendy had come from Corona del Sol, a rival school in our district, and was coming into a choir program having just loved our beloved director. It's not an enviable position, but the plan was for Downbeat to meet together to decorate the choir room. A little bit of team building before the year got underway. As would end up being the case for the next 3 years, I was the first one there, even before Wendy. Living in close proximity was one thing, but also I just didn't like to be late or have someone looking at me when I would come in. Even though part of my shell had been cracked thanks to Jack and the Pops concert medley, I had still not embraced being a public performer. "You're early," I heard a voice say as Wendy arrived. "Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Wentz. I'm singing bass and baritone," was my response. Oh, great. Yeah, I've heard about you. Wendy threw me her keys. Can you unlock the room for us? I did just that, then returned her keys and started to help Wendy with whatever supplies she needed. As the rest of the choir showed up, introductions were made. I was immediately intimidated as the members of Downbeat made their entrances, but I did have some familiarity with Brian, Stephen, and Jeremy, who, like me, had made it from chorale the year before. Blaine walked in with his girlfriend at the time, Jennifer G., who was also part of the choir. The rest of the choir started to have side conversations, many of them knowing each other, and Blaine walked up smiling. "Hey, Matt, how was your summer?" he asked. It was great, Blaine, thanks. Yours?" I responded, a little surprised he'd remembered my name. "It was good. Hey, listen, let me introduce you around." Blaine introduced me to Katie, who I had remembered from the year before as our Pops Medley choreographer. This meeting also kind of reminded me how pretty I thought she was. And after a quick exchange, Blaine introduced me to Pam T., who was Katie's best friend and in the choir council. Jennifer K., who struck me as an absolute fun-loving diva who, for whatever reason, intimidated me. Nathan M., who was a tall bass who seemed no nonsense, and Eric S., who was a tenor and quick to say hi. There was Laura W., who became one of my favorite people to see daily, as she was friendly and funny. Tamara G., who was another gifted musical genius. Miriam M., who was, along with Jennifer K., absolutely friendly and fun, but for whatever reason I felt intimidated by. David O., who was the son of one of the instructors at the school, a deep bass, and would quickly be enveloped into our guy group. Curtis V., I didn't actually get to know very well, and he left Downbeat shortly after the year started. Leslie S., who was a brilliant talent and I shared German class with, and Becky K., who was no nonsense and quick to bond with me over our shared love of professional wrestling. Together, we were going to be that year's Downbeat choir, the highest performing choir and the one that would go out of town for competition and events. While every one of these people would be memorable, all in their own way, I remember Blaine walking me up to a young woman with jet black hair and a bright, warm smile. As we approached, she immediately smiled at me, and it melted any nerves I had away. This is Diana. We all love Diana, and you will too, Blaine said prophetically. It didn't exactly take me very long to realize why he said that, because it was instantaneous. Diana is very quick to love you and be loved by you. She is so caring and inviting and would do everything to see the best in people, and is one of the warmest smiles and personalities I've ever come across. Let me be clear about this. Diana is without a doubt the kindest heart I've ever met in my life. If she's ever had a critical word about anyone that I've ever heard her say, it still oozes love. If the guys were ever late on a part and holding up a rehearsal, while others would be like, "Come on, guys, get with it," and our response would be, "Oh no, we suck again," there would be Diana with a smile and a cheer to let you know you'd get it next time. Now, as the school started that year, my daily routine would include going in early, sometimes before the doors were even open, and waiting for Downbeat to start. I also was, still am, an avid drinker of root beer, preferably A&W, if I brought it from home, or Barks if I stopped at a soda machine on the campus, but I would make anything work as my breakfast drink of choice. It was a common occurrence for me to bring a can to school, drink it, then grab a bottle from the cafeteria between our 0 hour and first hour break in a cappella before it would even start. One of the other pieces of my daily routine would be waiting for Diana. Diana would be dropped off to school by her brother, and every morning I looked forward to greeting her. She would put her hands up in the sign for "I love you" all the time, and she was known as being Miss Peace and Love. This was never just jest. If she loved you, she loved you. And because I lived in this romanticized chivalry ideal at the time, every day I opened the door for her. I'd greet her with a bow, or a smile, or a wave, always while drinking root beer. But I always wanted to greet her. What started off as just a thing, those root beer and early mornings, became something so much more for me. I loved Diana instantly, just exactly like Blaine said was bound to happen, because of who she was as a person. Getting to see her, usually the first person I'd see in my day at school, would always, always put the day in a better place. And my hope as a 15-year-old kid was to show an ounce of affection back with a smile and an open door. It didn't take long for us to be joined by Xandar, whose given name is Ferenc Xavier Alexander Farrah IV, but when Blaine had introduced us, he told me his preference of name. Our introduction came very early on in the year during the first week of school and in a cappella. Xandar had been in a cappella the year before as a freshman, and he and Blaine had hit it off. As Blaine and my friendship grew, Xandar and mine did as well. He would come to school early, and we'd talk about our families, our interests, as he was into video computer games, dabbled with role-playing games, and was also a fellow choir guy, so music helped us bond. There isn't an exact moment that I could tell you that I knew he was going to be like a brother to me. It was just subtle and cemented. One of the fun things about Xandar is when someone would greet him, he would respond in his lowest, "Hey," which became a bit of his catchphrase. While he hadn't made Downbeat that year, he would always show up before it started to spend time with Diana and I. And my friendship with Xandar would be a friendship that would also be life-changing as well. These early mornings with Diana and Xandar, whatever the topic of conversation might be, I can also look back as very cherished moments. Diana was a senior when Xandar and I were sophomores, so there's also that little bit of a nagging feeling that I selfishly wished for more time with her. She and I would talk about disagreements or triumphs we had with our choir director, and we would ask each other about life or crushes. The one thing was, her energy and heart were out of this world, and Xandar and I were very protective of Diana, and would hate to see her bothered by things. I did, however, always have to keep her on her toes, because she didn't necessarily like my use of foul language, and I would let that fucking shit fly. But Diana was also always prepared for a mouthy underclassman, as I would soon find out. We're the beating of a heart, the beginning, we're the start. Blaine was the big brother I never had. I didn't know I needed, and we were quick, real quick, to become best friends. While I felt at times like maybe I was just the charity case as a sophomore being befriended by a cool senior guy, Blaine never seemed to feel that way. Our bond was natural and honest. We just clicked. In the first half of the year, Jeremy, Blaine, and I would grow as friends due to Downbeat and would plan to hang out. You add Xandar to the mix, and we had started to become a nearly unstoppable force. In choir, Blaine and I would sing bass baritone, Xandar bass, and Jeremy was a tenor. We would practice together and sing together, and when school let out, we would spend most of our free time hanging out. As teenage guys, playing video games was king for us at the time. With an eclectic array of interests, though, we were never bored of finding new games to play. Hanging out after school to just shoot the shit and get to know each other, and yes, we would talk about girls who might be catching our eye. We also tried to keep each other on the straight and narrow. You know, don't be dicks, don't be assholes, just kind of be fun. Zane and I seem to share this romanticized idea of chivalry, to hold doors open, to be available to help, to be respectful as could be. It wasn't hard to convince Jeremy either, as he shared the same ideas of just being nice to people was the best way, and that any sort of weird mind games, emotional teasing, etc. was just not worth the time or effort. Blaine also seemed to fit that mold. We would love to joke with each other and push each other's buttons, but only for fun. Being malicious in how you treated people just had no place in our friendship, and we wanted to make sure that any friends we had or made knew they had a place to turn to if they needed it. A few weeks into the year, as Jeremy and I were walking down the hall, a short blonde girl walked by us and perkily said, "Hi, Matt. Hi, Jeremy." Jeremy said hi back, and I looked at him. "Who's that?" I asked. "Oh, that's Tammy. That's Blaine's sister." I stopped. That's Blaine's sister? Blaine has a cute sister? It had surprised me to know Tammy had known who I was. Blaine had mentioned introducing her to Jeremy, and she knew of me because Blaine had pointed me out one day, but hadn't exactly returned the favor in pointing her out to me. When Blaine officially introduced us, I instantly loved Tammy, who is a pint-sized package of sass and kick-ass. Like, there's no other way to say it. Then she had an attitude that would absolutely, absolutely drive you insane, but a heart that you loved. And she quickly swung right into the group. She was no tag-along. She'd slice you with her wit, and she became a new little sister. I loved her. Blaine and I had taken all of a month to realize we were best friends, and being the two baritones in Downbeat, he was also very good for my self-esteem. We're the very good-looking baritone duo, he once called us. Kumbaya was my response. Wait, what was that? He asked. I cannot believe you sometimes. And kumbaya is how you respond? The thing is, it was, and it stuck. If something happened that I just could not believe, I would just blurt it out. I had never really thought about why I used that word. It just always seemed like a fun word to say and use as a response. The thing is, once I used it, it just stuck. And I would use it as a sense of exasperation or just not believing the situation. Bases, you came in late on that last stanza, Wendy would say. Kumbaya would be my response. But it wasn't the only thing that would be the response to any of our failings or flounderings if the guys came in late or sharp or flat or missed at something. Oh no, we suck again! Came a bellowing harmony of male voices. We could at least get that in tune regularly. Blaine, Xandar, Jeremy, Tammy, and I would make it a habit to go over to Blaine and Tammy's house often, where their mom, Beth, quickly became my second mom. With a group of teen boys coming over, two things were never in doubt with her. One, we would always take care of each other and Tammy. And two, pizza was a really good thing to have on hand. You guys want to know what's exciting? Resident Evil 2 is coming out for the N64, I said one day. I was met with blank stares. What's Resident Evil 2? Tammy asked. Like the greatest zombie video game ever? I'm gonna buy it and play it. Have you guys never heard of it? Who'd want to play a game about zombies? Blaine asked. Okay, wait. You guys, have you ever seen Night of the Living Dead? I asked. And again, was responded to with just stares. Evil Dead? Dawn of the Dead? Zombie? They just kept staring at me and I couldn't believe it. Kumbaya, I've got work to do. Gaming and horror movies were going to be something that brought us all together, and the foursome of Blaine, Tammy, Zan, and I were nearly inseparable a lot of the time. Within just a few short months of us being together as a group, we were family. I called Beth Mom, and my parents became the mom and the dad to the rest of the group. And yes, the was part of the name, which made them sound sometimes like they were the head of the mob, which I suppose wasn't too far off with my friend group. My love of horror movies, specifically zombie movies, was beginning to rub off on Blaine. Watching the films of George Romero, watching Italian zombie movies, and any weird ones I could find became a weekend event, and if I didn't own them, we'd run to Blockbuster Video. Hey Matt, what's black, white, yellow, and blue and about to hit you in the knee? Blaine asked me one day while the four of us were cruising around in his quote-unquote ghetto-mobile, our affectionate name for his Geo Metro hatchback. No idea, I said from the passenger seat. Blaine took a corner, sharp, sending the Blockbuster Video boxes off the dashboard and straight into my knee, calling a shot. Zan and Tammy, after pulling themselves up from being thrown around the back seat, laughed. I couldn't be mad, it's just how we were. To be fair, we kind of escaped death from that car a few times. Once, a speeding UPS truck nearly hit us coming out of a Burger King parking lot, and had we been in any other car, we'd have been in trouble. While Tammy and Xandar had screamed to high heaven as it sped past, Blaine and I burst into laughter. Sure, it could have been because everyone in the car came really close to shitting themselves, or because we had an element of fearlessness, but it's just how we reacted. Blaine and I went for drives all the time after school, whipping through traffic, but keeping it relatively safe. We took drives down Pecos Road, which was at the time just a stretch of road and undeveloped neighborhoods, hitting the end of the road and turning back, and there we would be, talking while the radio played 80s rock, or Blaine's favorite, the Backstreet Boys, blaring through the air. Blaine, Xandar, and I would do all-night gaming sessions, including recording the gameplay. Not us, but the games we played, and we did it just a way to relive some of the epic fights or the memories. For some games we rented, it was just a way to enjoy them without having to rent them again, or if we were just interested in some parts of it that we thought were cool while the game itself, well, sucked. There is still a VHS marathon of a tape somewhere where we played Super Smash Brothers for 8 hours straight, an epic marathon of trash talk and brotherly bonding. When we rented Pokemon Snap, Jeremy joined us because he was very interested in photography and he was one of the photographers for the school yearbook, and that's what the game was built around. All these gaming sessions would always start with eating pizza and drinking soda, but ended up us kicking each other's asses, with Xandar winning most of the fights. When Resident Evil 2 was released, I excitedly bought it, bringing it over to Blaine's. As Xandar, Blaine, Tammy, and I settled in, I started to fill them in on what Resident Evil's backstory was. So STARS is the main good guy group in the original? Tammy asked. Special Tactics and Rescue Service. They are trained to handle emergencies, I explained. Each has their own specialty. Sure, Zan said, reading the manual. It's us, Blaine said. Yeah, it's us, I replied. There's the Alpha and Bravo team in the game. Guess that would make us the Omega team. The last ones to leave, Xandar said. Us and Jeremy, Blaine added in. We're always the first ones to choir practice, last ones to leave, so that's us. The first ones you call, the last ones to leave you. STARS, I said. We smiled. We had an aim. It may have been nerdy, it may have been video game inspired, but before long it wasn't just a group. When Blaine and Tammy's great-grandma passed away, Zan and I joined them to sing at the funeral. We walked the cemetery afterward, tried to cope with jokes and horror movie quotes. We weren't just a group of friends, we were family. And the best thing about family is after a while, you grow.
It stopped recording halfway through, so go figure. Now I have to redo like a small part of it. So here we go. I guess you're just what I needed. There had been some notable changes in me from summer into the new school year. I hit a growth spurt and gone were the love handles. I went from just about 5 foot to about 5'7". But changes in physicality weren't the only things I was getting used to. One of the other growing changes was that I had found a certain ability to always be the quote unquote go to guy for my female friends to talk about their guy problems with. It had somewhat started freshman year, but it really began to gain prominence my sophomore year. I always enjoyed helping, but as a bit of a hopeless romantic who didn't know if he ever had that much in luck in the way of dating, it also made for some great writing material in my journal. And as the year started, my friendships with more girls than guys continued. I had plenty of opportunity to continue offering a listening ear while also traversing and building friendships. My friendship with Kate had been a little strained. She had started dating a senior, and at the time, I had felt a little left out in our friendship, as it had felt like I was only ever really good for attention or helping her with a problem. So, after getting to a point of deciding that hearing relationship drama just wasn't something I was interested in doing or being a part of, the conversation had rubbed her the wrong way. As the year started and her relationship in question had waned, the two of us had started the process of strengthening our friendship again. Emily and I shared more classes together. Specifically, we took German and world history and geography together. I also still had a bit of a crush on her. However, we were no longer in the same choirs. I was the only of our trio to make Downbeat. Kate and I shared time in a cappella, and Emily had chosen a science class her first hour instead of a cappella, so she was in the all-female second hour choir Chante. As my friendship with Emily grew, thankfully so did my friend group, and in turn, so did hers. I introduced her to Blaine and Xandar and Tammy, and she introduced us to some of her friends who were in like the band and orchestra and who she had known for years. This growing umbrella of friends included Adrian H., who I shared biology with and also world history, and then also Corey H. and Aaron O. And then by early October, Emily would introduce me and Blaine to Meg A. as well. Aaron, Adrian, Meg, and Corey were in the orchestra, marching band, symphonic band side of the house when it came to the Mountain Point Performing Arts Department, which meant we would see a lot of each other in the hallway or the Performing Arts Wing. The intermingling of the programs, planned dual concerts or performances, also meant we'd see a quite bit of them, and our friendships continued to grow. We'd see the marching band getting there about the time or a little after we in Downbeat would get there, and that breeds a common thread. If you get up at the ass crack of dawn for practice, it pulls you together. We as a group would spend our lunches together out at the beach club, which was this collection of tables and a sand volleyball court where lunches were served as an alternative to the cafeteria. We all flocked there as a group and would remain there for the next few years of high school. It also became our spot even after school at times as well, just to hang out instead of going home. Erin, for a lack of a better term, was spunky. A beaming smile and almost always wearing a bandana when I'd see her, she also gave some of the best hugs I could ask for. Corey was the cool freshman with a bit of this classic rock flair and was pretty much the leader of the color guard in the marching band. She would always wave to us enthusiastically in the morning as they passed on their way out to the football field. Meg always exuded confidence, was absolutely brilliant and quick witted. She also owned a smile that could make your day, and in my case, absolutely would on more than one occasion when I would see her. It was easy to become friends with her because she was very accepting of meeting new people, so our friendship just came naturally. Adrian is a bit of no nonsense, a definitive piece of her personality that had started to come out by the time I met her. Now, sure, some might call it an attitude, but it was never bratty. Meg, Adrian, Aaron, Emily, and Corey began to be more present in our friend group get togethers, and this continued to show just how our group worked. We couldn't tell you when the lot of us became friends officially. We just were. It was amazing to see just how quickly we were all folding together, and it made me smile to see how our friendship and our group grew. And listen, if I were to be completely honest, I couldn't believe our luck in just how attractive all of our new girlfriends were. Like, holy shit. I can hear the things you're dreaming about. When Adrian got into my orbit, I knew of her, but Jeremy one day mentioned she was his stepsister. Blaine and I nearly died. That's your stepsister? We exclaimed. When it came to Adrian, it seemed obvious to me pretty early Blaine was smitten. I tried to play it cool around her, but I was not good at it. Like, at all. I was very much a very hard on your sleeve type of guy, and I still am. And Adrian was another to quickly catch my eye and, yeah, a little bit of my heart. When we first met, you creeped me out, she said later. It wasn't exactly or necessarily what one would think of as a glowing memory to hold on to between friends, but it's the follow-up that I always remember. But then I can remember but then I realized how intense and dedicated you are, and that's part of your charm. This is how it was explained to me in a letter Adrian wrote me after she moved away halfway through our sophomore year. Adrian wasn't the first friend who moved away during high school that affected me greatly, but I was determined to keep her informed on the goings on of our group. That group of friends I made that sophomore year was one that felt like it could never be beat. The first half, of course, is the stars group. Without them, there's no nucleus. But right outside of that, Emily and Adrian and Meg and Aaron and Corey, they were all right there. We were an absolutely fun force together, and Adrian and Jeremy's eventual move was a shakeup. Knowing two members of our group would be leaving in short order and both were such good friends meant time was of the essence when it came to spending it with them. We would be losing two people, but for me, Adrian always stuck out. While school had started our friendship, the honest kickoff of Adrian and me being very good friends came because of a hangout that Blaine, Jeremy, and I had at Jeremy and Adrian's house. Blaine, of course, was more than happy to come along because Adrian was going to be there. I was happy to be there because my friends and I were going to hang out, eat, and play Resident Evil 3 all night. I was a simple, zombie loving kid at this point. Now, what happened that night still resonates with me because that was the night Adrian and I slept together for the first time. Bet your eyebrows perked up on that one. Because it's not the way you think. But I always say it like that whenever I get a chance because I'm an absolute dork, and that night is a core memory of mine seared into my brain. Blaine stayed and played games for a while, but as the night wore on, he decided to cut out. Jeremy and I, though, we were in it for the long haul, and as we continued gaming, there was a knock on the door. Adrian peeked her head in and asked if she could come hang out, and we were cool with it. Um, when she walked in wearing a pink nightgown and a glowing, confident smile, I was thrown off guard. Wait, what the fuck is happening? I thought to myself as she moved around me and sat behind me on Jeremy's bed. See, my 15-year-old ass is naive, and it's one that gets stuck in his own head. I used to cover my eyes during horror movie nude scenes, and then here's this absolutely gorgeous friend of mine sitting on the bed in a nightgown for the night, completely comfortable around me. Core memory mode unlocked. 15-year-old boy hormones further activated. Adrian hung out with us all night. And as what happens during all nighters, people just start dropping off at times. You know, quick 15, 20-minute power naps, and they wake up and keep on going. Jeremy nodded off at one point as we were shooting through zombies and Nemesis and anything else that the game was throwing at us. And Adrian and I just talked as I played. The two of us were almost always in group or class settings, but this was just us, talking and hanging out. I can still remember her laugh and smile as we talked about her friends, or she complained about boy problems and I tried to offer advice, all the while trying to make sure we didn't wake up Jeremy. She began to fall asleep as Jeremy woke up, and as he took control of the game, I ended up catching one of those quick 20-minute power naps. I could feel Adrian at the edge of the bed roll into me as I sat on the floor, and she draped her arm over my shoulder, and we slept together until I woke up from the quick power nap. Feel a little better? Jeremy asked. Yeah. How far are we? I replied with a stretch. A little gaming progress was made, and we just kept chatting through the night. Jeremy seemed pretty aware that Blaine may have a thing for his stepsister, and we talked about their upcoming move. It was a downer of a subject because I also know that there was a concerted effort to get them to stay. This was brought on by a friend of Adrian's and her family who had gone so far as to offer their parents to let the two of them stay with them at their house to finish off the school year. It was a shot in the dark, but it was hope. No one wants to see friends move, especially in the midst of the jungle that is high school. We had to keep things together if we were going to help each other survive it, right? During our talk, we could hear murmurs from Adrian, but she was still asleep, rolled over, eyes closed, out like a light. We tried to quiet down even more, getting back to shooting zombies, but after a few minutes, as we were deep into the intense part of the game, Adrian shot upright, sitting straight up, and then stared right at us. We jumped, she mumbled something incoherent, and then fell right back asleep. What the hell? Jeremy asked. Fitting for a zombie game night? I chuckled. The rest of the night went on pretty harmlessly. At some point, we each took another power nap, but Adrian slept mostly through the rest of the night, rolled right up against the back of my shoulders, her arm draped again right over my shoulder and neck as I sat and gamed or napped. When morning came, the game was beaten. We were tired, but the night had been pretty fantastic. Adrian was awake to see the final bit of the game, and I knew that she was going to be stuck with me, and me, her, for a long time. And that puts us right where we need to be for this week's reading, um, where I get to introduce and name the Stars crew, which, born out of just absolute dorkiness, um, is still how we kind of see ourselves today. Um, yes, there are more adventures to come and things because, we're freaking high school students. So there's dances and all sorts of things. And maybe, just maybe, because this is all things Matt's a dork, we'll get into a little bit more of the Matt's slight romantic life, or try of a romantic life, in the next video. Um, Thanks for watching along. Thanks for like the handful of people who have like subscribed and become like this is their thing. Um, Really, I do appreciate it. And just because I have this around, no, I'm not sponsored for this video. I'm just doing this all low tech and everything. Um, but I mean, 20 something odd years and it doesn't change that I drink root beer for breakfast. So, thanks again. Uh, as I said last week, keep circulating the tapes, um, uh, because this is a lot of fun, even if it's just an exercise in just, I guess, ego. Um, be good to yourself, and what's that other thing? Oh yeah, keep on rolling.